Hi. Thank you guys for joining me for my first Facebook Live ever by myself. So I really did not feel comfortable doing this, but I was told that this is a good idea. So I'm talking today a little bit about my book, Start Each Day with a Smile, which is a 5-week process for journaling where you can work on self-esteem, boundaries, self-love, self-care, and personal growth. So I wanted to talk a little bit about each week and then explain a little bit how they're different and then how they're the same and how helpful they are overall. So if you guys have any questions as you are listening, please feel free to comment, and I'll type in as fast as I can and respond to your comments as well. So the first part, the book is layered a certain way because of the research I've done as far as like what self-care looks like and how people sometimes struggle with the idea of self-care. So for me, I looked at the first part as like, okay, so why do we need this whole self-care thing? Why do we need a book about self-care? Why do we need to focus on self-care? So one of the reasons why we need to focus on self-care is because we have sometimes there's self-esteem stuff. So the book starts off with self-esteem. How do we look at self-esteem? How do we view ourselves? Things that we think about ourselves and stuff like that. So that's why the first part is looking at your self-esteem. So the first week really makes you like think about how you view yourself, what do you think about yourself, and ask yourself those questions that are tough, right? And because it's a journal, journals are supposed to be private and personal, that, hey Shalita, it's supposed to be, hey Cornell, hey. Anyways, so the journaling piece is supposed to be personal. So you are able to, you're talking to yourself and you're making sure that you're focusing on yourself. So this is where you can be honest, right? So when you really view your self-esteem, it's like, okay, what don't I like about myself? What are some things that I do engage in that are not good for me? So what is it about my self-esteem that I can change? Let me look at my self-esteem. So I previously did the book in 2018. I did the 5-week part as well. And now I'm doing the journey all over again, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I had to reevaluate my self-esteem. Things are happening. Things are changing. It's been almost 2 years now, and I've changed myself, and I've grown as an individual. So it's like, okay, what about my self-esteem has changed? And of course, during this pandemic, a lot of things have changed as well. So it's like, okay, so how do I look at myself? How do I view myself after this 2-year process? How do I view myself today? What things have damaged my process? What things have damaged my self-care? And then how do I get that back? So looking at my self-esteem, looking at your self-esteem, and seeing how you view yourself. The second week is boundaries. So again, after you work on your self-esteem, that's where sometimes you have the hard time setting boundaries with people because of your self-esteem, right? You have that, you think that, okay, if I don't do what other people say I need to do, then they may not like me and I'm going to feel bad about myself. But being able to set boundaries is a perfect part of life, right? And that makes relationships very healthy. So that's the second week. So we build up your self-esteem, and now we look at boundaries. And then the biggest part about boundaries is boundaries with yourself. We do think of boundaries as an external factor, but we also need to think about boundaries as an internal factor as well. Okay, what are the boundaries I'm setting with myself? If I'm saying that I'm going to create a schedule, do I need to hold myself accountable for that? Absolutely, right? So looking at boundaries and how you may sometimes sabotage your own personal growth because you're not setting boundaries within yourself. If you're going to say, I'm going to stick to this diet, I'm going to stick to this routine, I'm going to go to work 15 minutes early and get started, like being able to hold yourself accountable and set boundaries with yourself. That means you have to set that alarm a little bit earlier. If you're going to stop coffee or anything that you're going to commit yourself to, you have to set the boundaries within yourself. So we work on self-esteem, then we look at boundaries, then we look at self-love. Okay, how do I love myself? Do I love myself to stick with this? I looked at my self-esteem. I worked on my self-esteem. I'm working on boundaries and how I relate to myself and how I relate to others. Now that self-love piece is in the middle because you're in the middle of this boundary thing and you're in the middle of this self-care thing. And that takes love, right? It takes love of yourself to be able to say no, to be able to say, no, I don't want to be a part of this, to be able to say, this is too much on my plate. It's about being able to say no and not feel guilty. And that's self-love. Being able to say, okay, I can do this, I can do that. But being able to set those boundaries and still be okay with it. Because sometimes we have situations that we feel guilty about, and we don't need to feel guilty about those things. It's self-care, it's taking care of ourselves, and loving ourselves give us that opportunity to practice that self-love. And being able to practice that. And week 3 really makes you dig into like, okay, how do I love myself? How do I practice that self-love? How do I love myself? Because how I love myself shows others how to treat me as well. And we don't think about that. So we're trying to figure out, why do so-and-so treat me this way? Why do I get passed up on these promotions and stuff like that? And it's like, okay, well, how do I present myself? How do I love myself? So that's why self-love is the 3rd week, because it's kind of like in the middle. It's like the meat of it. And then the 4th week is self-care. So now that you got your self-esteem in check, you got your boundaries in check, you have that self-love in check, now we have the self-care part now. The self-care part is, okay, I know all these things are good for me. Now it's my challenge, it's my goal, and it's my intentions to practice these things. And I need to practice these things daily. So the self-care piece is like, how do you practice self-care? What does that look like for you? And sometimes people think self-care has to be expensive. Sometimes people think self-care takes a lot of energy and effort. And if it does, then that's not self-care. So self-care could be, my favorite thing that I talk about is self-care can be your daily routine at night. So if you take your bath at night, you're thinking about washing all the day off your body and everything, and then you get to watch that stuff just go down the drain, right? So if you have like some lotion that you love, your favorite scented lotion, I love essential oils, mine is lavender. So I add that lavender to the oil, and as I am moisturizing my body, I'm pouring back into myself, because sometimes your days kick your butt, right? And taking care of yourself is very important. So just doing that simple act, like that thing that we do all the time, such as bathing, brushing our teeth, washing our face, washing our body, bathing, all those good things. The things that we do daily, we don't even think of that as self-care. We think of it as, okay, I have to do these things so I'm not funky. I have to do these things so I'm not ashy. But in reality, we're pouring back into ourselves. So buy your favorite lotion, buy your favorite soap, get a face routine going, things that don't cost you anything. That shouldn't cost you anything but time. And it's something you have to do anyway. So when you're doing those things, thinking about, okay, I love myself, so let me pour back into me. So as I apply this lotion to my skin, I'm moisturizing my skin, I'm pouring back into my skin, I'm pouring back into myself. So making sure that you are pouring into yourself and practicing self-care. Again, it does not have to cost you anything. Self-care can be sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, feeding the birds, and that self-care, that's you with your 10 minutes to yourself, enjoying your time. And that is self-care. That may start your whole day and change the perspective of your whole day, just by doing that one simple act of self-care. At night, it could be meditation. At night, it can be watching your favorite TV show. It can be texting one of your best friends at night just to check in on them. That is also considered self-care. So looking at self-care in different ways so that it's not selfish and it's not a task. And the last part is personal growth. So the personal growth piece is my favorite. It's like, what have I learned through these 5 weeks? How have I grown? Let me really look at myself and say, okay, did I really invest into myself as much as I wanted to? Like, I got the journal. I answered the questions in the journal and I wrote down the stuff, but did I really invest in myself? So that last week is making you really look at, okay, how have I changed? And where do I want to go from here? The last page of my book is blank because it's for you to fill out. It lets you decide, okay, what's your next step on your self-care journey? So that's basically the book in a nutshell. We go from self-esteem, boundaries, self-love, self-care, and then personal growth. And it allows you, it's not like a cure-all, be-all, but it's like a stepping stone to get started on your self-care journey. And it's not something that if you have to do it twice like I did, I'm okay with that. I'm excited about doing it twice because I needed it. Things have changed in my life. I've changed. And it looks a little different the second time around. Like my boundaries are focus more on parenting now, like my parenting boundaries. Before, it focused on my relationship with others. So when I do it again, I'm sure it'll change as well. So basically, being able to practice self-care is important, and it's all about how you look at it. So let's see. Does anyone have any questions at all? Want to make this very innovative and live as possible. Again, this is not my thing. I'm not a fan of doing lives, but I can answer any questions if you want to, or if you have any comments. Those of you who have actually read my book, you're welcome to comment as well. Or those of you in the process of utilizing my book now, you're welcome to comment as well. Again, I want to make it as interactive as possible. So Shalita said, what are some of the questions one should focus on in the journal? I think the biggest one before you even get started with the journal is like, what do you want to get out of it? So again, this book is thin, but it packs a big punch. Like it really does. It kicked my butt too. What do you want to get out of the book? Like, what do you want to get out of this journey? And being dedicated, like you have to be consistent. Once you get started, be consistent with it. And figuring out what you want to get out of it. So say, for instance, you just want to be able to know what self-care looks like. So that may be your journey throughout the journaling process. So figuring out what self-care looks like for you may be the only thing that you focus on while you're doing this journal. And that's perfectly fine, because once you understand what self-care is and what it looks like, then you can start practicing daily. Jasmine said, how do you stick to your routine? Jasmine, my routine is hard. It's really hard. And when I'm not in a good place, I don't stick to my routine. I'm not going to lie to you. But when I'm in a good place, I think about what benefits I get out of my, so I do meditation. I enjoy my lavender oils. Yes, I love my lavender oils. And I take baths. I like to get Starbucks. My husband doesn't agree with that, but I love the Starbucks piece because it gives me that sense of like, it gives me a routine as well. So I like to meditate, and I notice that when I don't meditate, I'm not myself, or I have trouble with certain things, or my day just doesn't go the way it wants to. So when I journal about things that happen in my day, I notice that the things that are in my routine that are really good for me. So like I know that meditation is a part of my routine, and when I don't meditate, I'm off. So you stick to your routine by finding things that work for you. So like I know that I have a friend who likes to do yoga. That's not for me. I try yoga and it doesn't work for me, but meditation does work for me. So I find out the benefits that I have in my routine, I write them down, if that makes sense. Like if you're going to try to wake up early to exercise and you're finding that you're groggy, you're really not a morning person, then maybe waking up early is not your thing. So maybe you should try it in the middle of the day or try it at the end of the day and see what the benefits are. So tracking what makes you feel good, and that usually is your motivation to stick to your routine. So I hope I answered your question, Jasmine. And then Shlita, what were your consequences on your journey? What were my consequences? So my consequences on my journey, the first go around, was the loss of some relationships, which was sad, but also the beginning of new relationships and new patterns that were formed. So I did lose some friendships, but I think some of my friendships got stronger. I lost some fear, which I'm excited about. I was afraid of a lot of things, and I'm not afraid of having a voice anymore. So I lost some fear with that as well, but I also gained a voice as well. So thank you guys for the questions. And good, Jasmine. I'm glad it makes perfect sense. All right. Any other questions? All right. So if you do not have my book, you can purchase it at mwilkinsonconsulting.org. I think I should put that in a title or something, or a comment or something like that. But if someone can type that in for me, that would be great. I'm on my phone, so it's not really working well. But if you have any questions, let me know. You're welcome to ask questions via Facebook or Instagram. I plan to do this every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks from now, I'll do another 6 o'clock Facebook Live. You guys come with your questions. If you're working on the book and you're stuck, let me know. Come with your questions with that. Come with suggestions. We can talk about your own self-care preferences and how you guys practice self-care. Other than that, thank you guys for, you're welcome, Shalita. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the support. Again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be back 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.